I can't remember what the proclamations were. United, oh, there you go, Veterans United Way of Reno County.
All right, good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m., November 7th, 2017. Would like to welcome everyone to the City Council meeting. Please call roll.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Here.
Solner. Here. Inskeep.
Here.
Deckent.
Here.
Dave Line.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Darrell Peterson, please present the prayer this morning, if you will.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly and most gracious Father, an honor it is to come before you. And Father, we just thank you for everything that you're doing within this community. And Father, we just thank you for the good leadership. And Father, we just thank you for the plans that has been put into motion. And Father, we lift up all the different incidents around us, around the United States, with all the bad things that are taking place. Father, we just thank you for godly wisdom to know how to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves. And Father, we just depend upon the leadership of this community to be our resources that we pull from. But most of all, Father, we pull upon your wisdom and your understanding and your peace that passes all understanding. Thank you for this meeting today. This is a blessed meeting. We thank you, Lord God, for the wisdom that goes forth. And Father, we just thank you that we know it'll not happen, but that it pleases the majority of people. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, next item, Linda.
Item 4A, Pioneer Award for the Comprehensive Plan.
There's our crack planning staff this morning. Good morning, everyone.
Well, good morning. Janet McCarran, Director of Planning and Development. And I just wanted to let you all know, and actually present this to the City Council, that the city won the Pioneer Award from the State Kansas APA Association. We were given this a couple weeks ago at our annual meeting. And the award was for the comprehensive plan that you all worked, some of you worked a lot of meetings tirelessly to complete, and also came to all of our public meetings. We want to thank you for supporting the plan. And I just wanted to thank the staff. Aaron, who I think I mentioned before, he worked till I think 2 in the morning the night the plan went to press. Casey Jones, who did a lot of the framework section of the plan. Charlene, who was our editor, she edited every single piece of it, proofread it for us. And Amy, who did the livability section. And I just want to congratulate them all and thank you guys for your support.
Congratulations.
Here, here. You know, to the entire planning staff, we are so fortunate to have the level of competency and skills that you all bring to the city of Hutchinson. And you know, frequently as we have side meetings regarding various issues of the community, the comprehensive plan obviously is on the top of the mind of many, many people. So I think people have accepted it. I think you're trying to follow the implementation of it. So it's a good working document and great work on your all's part. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Here, here.
Yes, definitely.
All right, next item.
Item 5, Proclamations.
All right, we have 2 proclamations this morning. I'd like to have Steve Rempel, Chris Schul, and Jesse McElhaney, if they're here, to come to the podium. Good morning, everybody. How are you all? Good. Nice to see you. How are you? Good. Nice to see you. Good. Good. Well, this is a special anniversary that we have this year for the Reno County United Way, and so I'm going to present the proclamation, and then perhaps you can enlighten us a little bit on where things are with the United Way and the campaign this year. All right? All right. Whereas United Way of Reno County, a not-for-profit that is best known as a fundraiser previously known as the United Fund, and then United Way is celebrating 50 years of serving the community. And whereas United Fund was started in the 1960s by volunteer business leaders and the Chamber of Commerce to support a one-stop place to donate to help local nonprofits. It transformed into the United Way of Reno County in 1975 and continues to serve the community. And whereas United Way of Reno County's mission is to improve lives in Reno County by mobilizing the caring power of our Reno County community. And whereas United Way of Reno County's vision is that we are a united community where individuals and families have improved their quality of life through education, financial stability, and healthy living. And whereas United Way currently fundraises for 26 different local nonprofits here in Reno County, United Way considers this a part of the mission to support nonprofits so that they can focus more on the good work that they are doing in our community. Whereas United Way of Reno County is working to advance the common good by creating opportunities for a better life for all. Their focus is on education, income, and health because these are the building blocks for the good quality of life. And whereas United Way recruits people and organizations from across the community who bring the passion, expertise, and resources needed to get things done to ensure that every child succeeds in every step of the way from cradle to career. Whereas United Way of Reno County invites everyone to be a part of changing our community for the better. United Way invites people to give, to advocate, and to volunteer. That's what it means to live united. Now therefore, I, John Daveline, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2017 as United Way of Reno County Month. Congratulations to all of you. I would just say as a sidebar before you come up that I have always, in the years I've been here, I've always so been impressed with the investment level and the contributions of the support of this community. On a per capita basis, I think we are one of the top communities in Kansas and the Midwest in terms of our per capita donations and support of the United Way. So excellent work on all your part. So, Steve?
Well, thank you, John. On behalf of the, I'm Steve Rempel, Chairman of the board. On the board, staff, our partner agencies, I see some of them here today. I want to thank you, John, for this proclamation. Focusing on our campaign right now, Lisa tells me that a lot of the businesses that she's getting out to, Stephen Peterman, we're getting some nice feedback on percentage increases on giving this year, so we're going to meet our $1.4 million goal this year.
Fantastic.
So,
Good.
Great. Very good.
We've been a little short other years, but this year we've got some good momentum going. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Betcha.
Thank you.
Oh, they want to do a photo of you guys here?
I think you're in there too, John.
Yeah.
Come on,
You're
John.
trying to duck.
All right, now, if Commander Rodney White would come forward from the VFW Lodge here. It's a tradition that we present a proclamation to the VFW organization in observance of the National Veterans Day. So let me present this to you if I can. Whereas since the birth of our nation, American patriots have stepped forward to serve our country and defend our way of life. Whereas with honor and distinction, generations of servicemen and women have taken up arms to win our independence, preserve our union, and secure our freedom. Whereas these heroes have put their lives on the line so that we might live in a world that is safer, freer, and more just, and we owe them a profound debt of gratitude. Whereas throughout the month of November, the citizens of Reno County salute the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who have rendered the highest service an American can offer. Whereas November 11th, 2017 marks the 63rd anniversary of the modern Veterans Day holiday and the 98th anniversary of the first Armistice Day commemorating the end of World War I. Whereas numerous celebrations, events, and remembrances will be held throughout the month of November in Reno County. Now therefore, I, John Daveline, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby recognize the month of November 2017 as Veterans Appreciation Month and call upon the citizens of Hutchinson to dedicate themselves to fulfilling our commitment to all those who serve in our name and honoring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. All citizens are hereby encouraged to participate in the celebrations, events, and remembrances that will be held throughout the month of November. So again, congratulations, Commander. Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to say a few words?
I'm Rodney White, commander out here at the VFW, and I'd just like to invite everyone to come and take part in our program. It's 11 o'clock Saturday, so, and then our lunch is gonna be right after the meetings thing, so. If you can, come on out and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Commander.
you.
See you Saturday.
All right. Next item, Linda.
Item 6, oral communications from the audience.
All right, this is the time that if there's anyone in the audience that would like to make some comments, 3 to 5 minutes on items that are not on the agenda and related to the Hutchinson community, please come forward.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Merrill Dye, the Assistant City Manager. I just want to give a shout out to our Chamber Art Gallery exhibit. We have a new exhibit on display now in this room and the room next door. This exhibit will run until January 29th. Our artist is Larry Carver, a local photographer. He does extraordinary work. We'll have tags posted later today on this, but all of the art that we bring in for the Chamber Art Gallery is for sale. And so if somebody is interested, then I can put them in contact with the artist if they are interested in buying a piece. This has been a very successful program, although we kind of get down to where we don't have a lot of artists who know about the program and are applying for it. But we have managed to get an exhibit each time for 12 weeks. But the last time the Design Council met, they did agree to expanding the program beyond Reno County. So now the program is including all of the counties that share a border with Reno County except Sedgwick County. So that would include Rice, Stafford, Pratt, Kingman, Harvey County, and McPherson County. So if there are some artists out there 17 and older that would like to apply, our next exhibit is going to start in February, and the deadline to apply for that exhibit would be December 29th. So thank you for your attention to this.
Thank you very much.
Meryl, those look like paintings from here. Are they photos, though?
They are
Yeah.
photographs. Mr. Carver does
Wow.
enhance his work with software, but yes, they are photographs. He and his wife have traveled a lot of the world, and so they focus in on not just locations that they visit, but also Larry likes to do floral content as well. So.
I don't know
Very
that
good.
anybody can see it but us because we're facing the right direction. But the one of Memorial Hall it stacks right up with all the other architecture from around the world. It's actually really breathtaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the exhibit is open anytime that this room or the room next door is not in use. And generally speaking, that would be probably a Friday, but not always. So you just have to catch a time when the exhibit is available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Anyone else in the audience? All right, I'm going to deviate just a moment from the agenda here and bring up a topic that's certainly fresh in our minds. That's the Target announced closing yesterday. And I'd like to have a little discussion here with the council and our city manager. Certainly it's very, very disappointing news that we heard yesterday and read in the news media this morning about their announced closing, I think effective in February. Much of a surprise to many, many of us, and it's certainly a setback that I think we can overcome, but it's an issue that I think as a city council, an elected body, I've gotten much feedback the last 24 hours from people who have called and sent emails, and I know others who are on social media have heard the same thing. So first of all, what I'd like to do is to ask our city manager to maybe share with all of us the conversations you have thus far had with the Target headquarters.
Sure,
Would,
thank
John?
you. Yeah, we, of course, I received the call yesterday from the person that's government affairs personnel, and basically gave me the news, and that was kind of hung up, and then decided to call her back later and have a conversation little bit further conversation about who else we can talk to about this decision, and didn't get a lot there. Then I did call her again this morning and says there's a lot of interest in this, and I just explained that, you know, we in the past have had a history of taking a definite decision and reversing that decision based on our efforts here, and that was the Eaton deal. People remember that 12 years ago or so. And that, is there something we could do? We haven't done a lot of retail incentives. We've done Kohl's, you'll remember that. But certainly, I wasn't committing us to anything, but certainly we would have that conversation if we could get a face-to-face with somebody. And again, I heard this morning that they appreciated that. They understand the pressure that we may be feeling a little bit today, but that decision was made based on performance, not just the last quarter, but over a period of time. And so the next question then we ask about the building itself and who we might be in contact with on maybe helping find other tenants for that. I believe Target actually owns that building, and so we'd be dealing with somebody in their real estate division. But you know, that's, and I did push a little bit in terms of, are there other people we could speak with? And you know, I didn't really get much there, but you know, certainly we could try to make that additional effort. But you know, just, I mean, I got a pretty strong feeling from her that you know, those decisions when they're made are final, and there's probably not a lot of reversal on those. And you know, we're not the only store that's been closed in Target over the last couple of years throughout the country. So it's you know, it's modern times, I guess, in business and based on performance. So that's what I have so far. Not to say that we're done with those conversations, but we have been, I think, fairly aggressive in trying to get to the right person.
John, I appreciate that background. Just again, on kind of a minimal basis, I have, like I said, received many, many phone calls, and people are basically asking, what can be done? What can we do? Can we save this? Can we reverse that decision? And so I got a phone number last night, and I'm going to give this phone number out. It is with the Target headquarters, and it's their guest relations department. I made a phone call this morning, and so I did get through to a person and told them who I was and indicated that there's a strong likelihood that we were going to give this phone number out to the community of Hutchinson in hopes and encourage people in a grassroots effort to reach out to Target and express your views. Who knows, guys, what might happen, but perhaps a grassroots effort might make a difference. It might just be a little bit of an edge, that with maybe some collaborative thinking between the city and the chamber and others, that something can potentially be reversed. So this is the phone number of the Target Guest Relations office. It's 1-612-304-6073. Then you prompt 0, and ultimately you will get a live voice, which I was pleased to hear, a live voice. And then they transferred me to an individual in their guest relations department. Gave them a heads up that likely we would be, many folks would be calling. So for what it's worth, this is maybe an initial step that we can pursue with others to follow. So Council, I don't know if you have any other comments or observations or suggestions in terms of what direction we as an elected body might take, but I'd welcome those at this time.
The comments I'd like to make don't so much have to do with Target or once the horse is out of the barn, so to speak, but, and I realize with internet and everything that digitally is used nowadays, but I think we need to recognize that should we choose to shop online, we're sending our money elsewhere, and I believe most of these online things don't benefit us in terms of sales tax as well. If I'm mistaken, I'm mistaken.
Some
but
do.
Some do.
Some
okay.
do, some don't.
But the point being, hopefully Target, we can have some impact, maybe in this way or others. But we're bound to be losing other retail stores as we go. And we, living here, have the most impact on that. If we choose to shop, excuse me, choose to shop out of town or choose to shop online, businesses cannot stay open. And so Each and every one of us make that decision every day we choose to go someplace else, or to both in terms of geographically as well as through the internet. So it's unfortunate. I'm hoping we can have some impact, but in my opinion, it would only be very short-lived if we don't make it a point to aggressively and assertively and consciously do and bring our business locally, which is a benefit to our community and all of us.
Steve, I think you make some good points, and I just wanted to offer a point of optimism because it was devastating news to this community, but a lot of people aren't aware that our Chamber of Commerce has engaged a retail specialist and is working with a consultant to try to address some of our retail gaps and make the necessary changes, and I don't know what that would entail, to try to recruit more retail here. That's something we have not done in the past. It is a new effort, and I hope that it's successful. There have been efforts over the last few years with the owner of the mall, and I know it's very easy to focus solely on stores that are closing, but we have had several openings. I noticed the Hutchinson News reported on the openings versus the closings, and I didn't realize the stark difference. There'd been far more openings. So although this news is tragic, number one, I do encourage you to reach out, like the mayor said. You never know. And number two, know that there are always efforts going on to remedy this. We're not just allowing this community to remain stagnant, and I think a lot of the comments are in relation to that because they don't know the efforts going on. I have a lot of faith in our chamber leadership, and we'll keep chipping away at it.
And this is a nationwide problem. It is not just Hutchinson and Reno County. I mean, I went back and looked in 2015, Target closed a whole bunch of stores across the country. There's a huge, long list of national retailers that are closing stores. Macy's, Rue 21, which we lost, and several others. So it's not just here. It's everywhere.
And also, I'll add to that. I know there's a retail push, but I don't think they've abandoned by any means the idea of getting other types of jobs as well. The Chamber has a pipeline they referred to in several meetings that I went to that did that, and I think we all recognize that retail is probably more of a following situation. So if we are able to entice some of those groups that they're trying to land, retail will tend to take care of itself.
There are a lot
of we'll get those jobs.
That is a really good point, Dave. There is a lot of people, or there are a lot of people who've contacted me and said, what can we do to incent them to stay? And I think we need to be very, very careful about incenting retail when there are other businesses that can suffer because because of that corporate welfare. Not that that's always unnecessary. There may be times to consider that. But our efforts and the Chamber's efforts need to remain focused on primary jobs, high wage earning jobs, recruitment of those. The retail and the restaurant will follow. But I do appreciate that they're working with this retail specialist.
Oh yeah, and there are niches that they're going to identify that should help as well. So.
All right, enough said about it, but we wanted to get it out there this morning and invite people to reach out to the Target folks and let them know of your concerns, and perhaps this decision can be reversed. Okay, anything else? Any other comments on the Target issue? If not, let's go to the consent agenda. We can.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, there are a couple of items I'd like to pull out or to talk
Okay.
about, if we could beforehand, or whenever it works for you.
Within the consent agenda? Yeah.
Yes, within the consent agenda. I had some question, not so much question. We're looking at the water tap charges, and not that I oppose having our fees reflect what they cost. But I noted that there'd been anywhere from a general 30 to 50% increase over the last 10 years in the water tap fees. That's 3 to 5% a year, and upwards of 100% on a couple of the areas. And it just seemed to be a lot of increase, and so I was curious what may have had that kind of an increase. That seemed to, and I'm hardly an economist, but seemed to exceed kind of yearly cost of living and those kind of things. And so I was curious what may have contributed, maybe most significantly labor or materials or whatever.
And if I understand correctly, that doesn't apply to people in the city limits, right?
No, it does.
Or it does? Okay. I thought these were people outside the city who were applying to be plugged in.
New water
Okay.
service.
And Brian Clennon, Director of Public Works. And really, if you look at the smaller water taps, the 3/4 inch to 1 inch, it's been equal labor increases and parts increases that have applied equally to the cost increase over that period of time. On the larger taps, 1.5 inch to the 6-inch taps, it's been parts is the biggest increase to that. And we do bid the majority of our parts on a regular basis so that we have supplies in stock.
Brian, how do these compare to other communities? Are they pretty?
They are pretty similar to other communities. And again, we're really just passing along our costs. And then for the water taps, we're only charging 50% of the total cost to us to do the work and to supply the materials necessary for the water meter.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not opposing. We're charging 50%, as you said, and we're charging based on our actual costs. They just struck me as some of them, particularly with a 100% increase in 10 years. I guess probably metal parts primarily, and some steels or brasses or whatnot that go into those that have dramatically risen.
Yes.
In that period of time. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the consent agenda?
Yes, I had one other.
All right.
On the financial report, what I noted is that our revenues and expenditures thus far, or through the third quarter, which is 75% of the year, our revenues and expenditures both are at about the 75% level, which seems to bode well. And yet I know that our sales tax receipts are down, or at least last report from the manager, 3% plus. And so I was just curious. We're now in our last 2 months of the year, but where are we looking as far as this year's budget? Are we going to be able to stay within that budget? Are we going to need to dip into reserves? What's kind of
well, let me just briefly, and I think I put a report up in front of you that Angela put together, and she actually did this a few weeks back, trying to project out, what our year-end fund balance. We spent a lot of time during the budget process referring to that, and so that's just a snapshot at the bottom there. And right now, we're looking at the 2017 year-end fund balance in the general fund at 4.9, almost $5 million, and so. Looking back during our budget discussion, we projected our revised at that time at 4.6, and so we're really on track to improve a little bit to where we were during the budget process. You can see there, decrease in cash in 17 is right at $965,000. Last year, the actual decrease in cash was $717,000. So. You remember in the budget process, we talked about hoping to improve upon our year-end fund balance for 2017, and based on these projections, and we're getting pretty close to the end of the year, and I'm pretty sure Angela's on top of where we might be there, give or take a few dollars here or there. So again, that's just a kind of a snapshot as how it's affecting our fund balance, which we were concerned always about spending more money than the revenue generated. So even though we're spending down some fund balance to balance this budget this year, it's not as great projected wise as what we talked about last July, August, which is good news. The interesting thing about all this, it was a big topic of our bond rating call we had here just a few weeks ago, and bonds you're going to be talking about here in a little bit, and the analyst was all over the difference in our fund balance drop, and so working with our financial advisor and Angela, we were able to explain that looking back over the last 5 years and what our fund balance has been, and in comparison to other cities, plus a lot of the other reserve funds that we have, you recall, in capital improvement fund and equipment fund, where we transfer money in the general fund for future projects, that theoretically could be brought back into the general fund to be a part of that fund balance. And so the good news was our rating did not change after that conversation. But it was a big focus of all the rating calls I've been on. That's been the most direct, lots of questions about that and why that is and what we're doing to improve upon that. So I don't know if that addresses specifically what you're talking about, but it does give you a snapshot as to where we think we're going to be now as opposed to where we thought we would be back in August or July.
How often is that rating review?
Typically when we're doing a rather large bond issue, I don't know that we have a rating call on every small issue, so it depends on the size of that.
Okay.
This one was fairly large, plus we had a refunding as well that you're gonna see too. So
I'm really heartened by these projections. These are
yeah, I hope Angela's right.
no pressure.
Angela, do you hope you're right?
Talk about pressure.
No, we've talked about it, and I was. Again, we always talk about that until the year end, and obviously we're not spending all of our budget. I think the fire department budget was actually over a little bit. A lot of that had related to the fires we had.
Sure.
That someday we'll get some reimbursement on some of that. So,
what accounts for I think you said we were anticipating a 4.6 million unencumbered at the end of the year, and we're looking to have a 4.9, almost 5. That $354,000 difference.
I think a lot of it is just, again, we always say that we never spend 100% of our budget, and if we did, we'd be in trouble. Vacancies throughout the year, there's just a lot of things, and so it's really kind of hard to project that. We typically, even in July, are still budgeting full use of personnel, and that fluctuates. And I think that's probably the biggest, issue there is just on the personnel side. That's almost 65% of our budget, and so that's a big one. Health insurance, we dealt with that a couple of weeks ago. That won't affect us until next year, but
right.
We did some things there that are going to save us a little bit over what we actually budgeted in 2018. So, but.
It'll be interesting this next year. I know that in the budget work we did in preparation for that, some of these areas where we tend to have some savings, I know that you budgeted actually having those savings.
That's a good, excellent point, that next year we may not have that,
cushion,
that
so to
luxury,
speak,
that cushion, knowing that, we won't spend all that. We really ratcheted a lot of that down to more actual, and I think that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But
it'll paint a much clearer picture, though. I mean, we'll know exactly where we stand.
Yeah. In sales tax numbers, you're right. We're down to date, 3.4% from the same period last year.
What's that in dollars? Do you have that on here and I'm not seeing it?
About 340,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
We're down from a little bit from budget there too. So it's a that's a concern. Always is.
Well, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's a good question. And thank you, Angela, for putting together this detailed information.
And we're pretty late in the year and in the quarter specifically. There's probably not much that will impact it positively or negatively, barring, I shouldn't say knock wood. Shouldn't say these things
you're
out
right.
loud. But some sort of a fire or something like that. But
right, you're correct.
We're not going to see much change. Okay.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Any other questions on the consent agenda? If not,
I'll
we have
second.
a motion.
I have a motion.
You have a
I need
motion. All right. Need a second. All right. Motion and a second. Please call roll.
Pyros de Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes. Next item.
Item 8A, consider ordinance authorizing general obligation refunding and improvement bonds.
Good morning, Council. Angela Richard, Director of Finance. If you remember back on September 19th, you authorized a resolution allowing us to sell bonds. These were for improvements to Orchard Park, Hobart Detter Field, Cary Park Golf Course, a multi-use trail, parking lot improvements, and infrastructure improvements to Monarch Meadow, Benefit District. Upon that resolution, we were We requested Moody's to assign a bond issue rating, which John already talked about.
Yeah.
We were able to keep our AA3 rating, which is very favorable, and very few are able to do that. But as he said, they did critique our ending fund balances. So we should be proud that we did hold that for this bond rating. Okay. So once that rating was received, we solicited the bond offers. The bond offers were opened yesterday, Monday, November 6th. We received 6 bids for our bonds. The interest rates range from 2.0139 to 2.1664. The best bid was submitted by Robert W. Baird & Co. Inc., and the true interest cost from them was 2.0139. A portion of the bond proceeds, as you know, are being used to refinance Series 2007C, 2008A, 2009A, and 2009B. The total final savings, including all the financing costs on these bonds, are equates to $256,928. The average interest rate for the bonds that we're refinancing are 3.99. So this effectively cuts the interest rate in half for those bonds, which is a very positive thing. The closing of the bonds is scheduled for Tuesday, November 28th. Upon your acceptance of the resolution and ordinance that are included in your packet. So staff recommends that you approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of the general obligation bonds.
I had just one question.
Sure.
And it's unrelated to the refinancing, but more related to the rating. We have a formula that we use for our ending fund balance. I think it's a bit arbitrary, but it's one we've agreed on. I think $2 million for natural disaster, a couple months, operating funds, et cetera. They're critiquing our ending fund balance. What formula do they feel we should go by, or is there a number they have in mind, or is it just the downward trend that they're upset about?
I think it's a combination of two things. The fact that our general fund balance is declining the past several years, and then the fact that we have this policy that says that we should have $2 million for one type of emergency disaster, I think, and then $2 million for an economic downturn, and then a month's worth of expenditures. So that's $6 million or over $6 million, and we're not meeting our own policy.
The policy is much, much greater than any other community, so it seems like...
Well, I think that's an excellent point. We talked about that, and we had some information last summer of fund balances from other cities, because I was always, okay, what are other cities? And we had our comparable cities, the Salinas of the world, and Dodges and Gardens, and some of them. And we were much higher fund balance than a lot of those communities. And so, we may be our own worst enemy as it relates to our policy. And we did have that conversation that, we may want to. I mean, I've always been a big proponent of, more the better, but there is a point. And so that's something internally maybe that we need to be talking about again, but it did come up. It's
well, it'd be interesting to know if there is any kind of standard, if that's a percentage of operating balances, or maybe we need to really look at that.
And we did offer them the research John had presented at the budget study sessions that compared other communities, and then it had the GFOA recommendation, which I'm not sure, but I want to say it was like 2 months of operating expenditures.
Yeah, it was in the $4 million range. I remember that, which would probably be that. And so there's people all over the board on what is the right amount. But GOFA, I think, is 2 months operating expenses. So for us, that'd be roughly what?
We would have met the recommendations for the GFOA.
Well, I like that we err on the conservative side. I just didn't realize it could hurt us in a bond rating. So.
Well, and this not to get into details of the analyst, but it was a new analyst that hadn't worked on our projects in the past. I think I remember Greg saying that.
And I don't think they were very familiar with Kansas municipalities either. When they looked at our anticipated ending balance for 2017 for our 2018 budget, they saw the downward trend, and I don't think they understood that Kansas municipalities budget more expenditures than they really anticipate they'll have, so they have that budget authority.
Yeah. Well, thank you for explaining
That's
that.
a good point.
So
Budget authority.
were they already looking at the 2018 budget and,
Yes.
okay, so they've already looked at that as part of this. It wasn't just
Yeah, correct.
the change from 16 to 17. Okay.
Yeah, we did. Angela and Greg Vanderberg, our financial advisor, they spent a lot of time kind of telling our story in a little bit more detail that I think really helped this analysts understand a little bit better about what's going on.
Well, when you look at the benefit of having that rating and cutting an interest rate in half, we need to do what we can to protect it. If we need to look at that policy, or I don't know. Just
Well, is it worthy at some time to revisit the policy as to, is that during the budget process or what?
I'm not sure it has to be done with the budget process, but I think it is something worth considering. I think it was something they advised that we do, that if we're not following our own policy, we need to revise it if we feel there's a good reason for it. And I believe we do have a good reason.
Is that something you'd like to present here in the future?
Yes, I can do that.
At some point?
Do that maybe after first of the year. Or
After the first of the year? Angela?
Yes.
All right.
thank you so much.
Quick question too, with the refinancing, how quickly do we realize the interest savings on that? Immediately or
I think it's over
Over
the term
the life
of
of the
those
bond.
Term of the
bonds.
It is,
And I
okay.
believe some of them had 10 years left.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Greg had another interesting note. Since 2003, we've saved about $2.7 million on all the refundings that we've done, over that
Wow.
period of time. So it's it seems small in some of these, but they add up to pretty significant dollars.
Kind of a follow-up to your question. I would assume our payments will decrease as soon as these bonds are reissued.
Right.
But as far as the total $256.
$256 and
Yeah, it'll take the life of those bonds.
Take the life of those.
Correct.
But that's, kind of what I was hinting at. We'll see it
We'll see
monthly.
it immediately
Yeah.
or real soon, yeah.
Yeah, in a small fraction, but yeah.
All right, any other questions of Angela? All right, we have a issue before us for a motion and action.
I move we approve the ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $6,465,000, the principal amount of general obligation funds refunding and improving bonds, Series 2017A of the City of Hutchinson, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on these bonds as they become due.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Pyrus de Carvalho,
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Inskeep,
Yes.
Deckent,
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes, next item.
Item 8B, consider resolution authorizing the delivery of general obligation refunding and improvement bonds.
I'll move to approve the resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $6.465 million principal amount of GO refunding and improvement bond series 2017-A of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city and authorized the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call roll.
Pyrus de Carvalho,
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Inskeep.
Yes.
Deckent,
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes. All right, thank you, Angela. Next item?
Item 8C, consider rate resolution for refuse service charges.
Again, my name is Angela Richard, Director of Finance. I come before you now to propose a resolution to increase the refuse service charges. We have a contract with Stutzman's Refuse Services that extends between 2013 and 2022. In 2016, we are supposed to pass a resolution going forward at that point to establish the rates for refuse based on the CPI index. Last year, the rates for 2017, they did not change because we had a negative CPI index. It decreased. So that's why you didn't see this last year. So going forward in 2018, we're taking the 2 years difference, which equates to 0.4%, and the rates will increase by that. And then for 2019, they will increase 2.5%. So for residential service, their rates will go from 11.11 into 2018. They will be 11.15, and then 2019 they'll be 11.43. For commercial, they'll go from 11.82 and 17 to 11.86, and then to 12.16. A couple notes on this is that the charges for additional carts will be the same as the first cart. You get one free recycling cart, and then recycling collection is once every 2 weeks. Staff recommends that you pass the resolution for the refuse rate increases.
This would be for 2 calendar years.
Correct.
Right, 2018 and 2019, right?
Correct.
And to clarify, this is mandated by the contract that was signed in 2013.
Yes,
Has to happen.
correct.
It was in the contract. Okay.
Angela, kind of an unrelated question, but in terms of our total utility billing, what is our percentage of uncollectibles, and do you have some recall of that? Is it a
I don't have that.
is it a
offhand.
single digit number, or is it a problem?
I don't think it's as big of a problem for
Yeah.
those that have water services, because we're able to cut off their water
Cut off the
service.
water.
It's more an issue for stormwater or sewer only. And for refuse, we're able to pull their carts.
Be able to pull the cards in. Yeah, there's a
So it would be a single number. I mean,
Single number,
The number
okay.
of accounts that we write off, I mean, it would be people that have moved and left the community, and you
Okay.
you can't track it down.
Go
So
on.
essentially,
Passed away.
there's a
not a
set
big
off.
issue then.
And we
Yeah.
do send those to state set off to be
Yeah.
collected.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Which they
Angela,
then
on the
collect
additional
in their
notes,
taxes.
were those in the original contract as well?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I remember the recycling one. I didn't remember no additional trash outside of the carts. So, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
What, we're still 5 years out, I guess, or remaining in this contract, but what are our intents here a few years down the road in terms of the Stutzman, the contract? Will we put it out for rebid? Does the contract allow for an automatic renewal or a negotiated renewal, or what?
Well, it'd be a negotiated effort, as it's been in the past. I don't see us ever getting back in the trash business, and once you get out, it's pretty hard. And there was a time where the city kind of maintained a reserve just in case we ever did that, and we eliminated that several years back. But Stutzman's, just looking at their history here and their efforts on the recycling end, that is second to none. Our recycling program in the state, I mean, it really is, and it's free, it's simple. Typically, we would make that based on performance, and as I see it now, I would suspect that we would come back with a proposed contract with Stutzman's, but things can change. So.
In 2013, was it out for bid? Is
No.
it- No. Okay.
I think it was on the heels of like a 7-year contract.
Yeah,
That expired as well.
I mean, the
But
original.
I hope we would negotiate for weekly recycling in 5 years. I'm just going to put that in there now.
You need
know,
more, huh?
2 weeks is perfect for me.
Is it?
I'm just
It
telling
is
you.
for me too.
I always know
you,
by
you must be
how full
throwing
it
away
is.
things that can be recycled, John.
No, I'm not. I promise.
I'm with Jade.
Thanks, Angela.
My recycle fills up faster.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know when
Well,
it happened.
since I'm
but
only
Well, you
one
can-
person, 2 weeks is fine.
Jade, you can get an additional cart,
I probably could,
Yeah,
but
you get
Yeah.
additional
it'd
card.
be a fee.
So we do allow that.
Well, Stutzman's does do a fine job.
They do, yeah.
And my question wasn't
No.
based because I didn't have that opinion. I just kind of hate to be in a position where we really haven't got any other choice. And,
Well, I
and
think
that-
we would have that option, and.
Oh, I know we would
it's-
have the option, but
yeah.
I mean, it would be a difficult option to go
Sure.
that direction.
They are owned by a,
Yeah,
they have been sold.
Yeah, the waste
to a-
management, aren't they?
Waste
Waste
Connections.
management,
Waste,
right,
yeah.
yeah.
It's connections. isn't it?
Waste Connections, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not
Waste management's the big
Connections,
boys.
yeah.
Yeah, big boys, yeah, right.
Have we seen any difference in relationship, customer relations, just the connection or the relationship between city and the company, since it's no longer a locally owned company?
I have not, and I've been very impressed with that issue, that you worry about that, because the
Yeah.
Stutzman's was a
Ownership.
family-owned business for years, and we knew them, and Waste Connections is I think, been very attentive to us, and we see them quite a bit. As far as customer service, Angela's utility and billing clerks probably hear the brunt of that if there are issues, but
We don't have any complaints.
yeah.
That's what I was going to suggest. Of all the complaints I do hear, that is not one of the ones that I've heard much from.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Okay, I will move to approve the resolution establishing rates, charges, and franchise fees for collection and disposal of garbage and trash by the city. All as authorized by sections 10-209 and 10-210 of the City of Hutchinson Code, Hutchinson City Code, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Please call roll.
Pyros de Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes. Next item.
Item 8D, consider ordinance amending the comprehensive plan land use map.
Good morning, Janet McCarron, Director of Planning and Development, and if it would be all right with you, I'd like to give you the presentation for the next two items, although I know you have to take separate votes, but
Okay.
they're basically the
Sure.
same presentation.
Yep.
So before you today, we have a request to amend the comprehensive land use plan map, as well as to rezone property located at the southwest corner of Sherman, and there it is. Sherman and Washington, sorry. So the applicant is J. Mansky and Associates, J. Mansky with Mansky and Associates, and he's in attendance today. And what they're hoping to do, the reason why they need to amend the comprehensive land use plan map as well as rezone the property is they're hoping to build a new structure there. That property's been vacant for, I think, as long as most people on staff could remember. Someone told us that they think it used to be a lumber yard a long, long time ago, but here's the property. And it's, as I said, it's vacant. As you can see around that property, most of the properties around there are built all the way to the property line. So here to the south, it's built all the way to the street. To the west is to the street. To the east is to the street. So that's basically a zero setback. But the property is currently zoned C4, which is our special commercial district, and it has a comprehensive land use plan map designation of commercial. And so the C4 requires a setback of basically 25 feet, unless you're on an arterial roadway. So the applicant wants to make the development match that surrounding development to make it look more like the downtown, because this was developed kind of with that downtown feel, and that requires the amendment. So here's the C4. You can see C5 zoning to the west and to the north. So it would basically be an extension of the C5. And for the comprehensive land use plan map, again, we have a CBD, a central business district. So this would just represent an extension of that district to cover this property. If you look in our comprehensive land use plan, or you look at our comprehensive plan, here's a table of the compatible districts and zoning, land use designations and zoning. And for that central business district, C5 is the only compatible zoning. So if you want to have C5, you have to change your comprehensive map designation. So some photos of the property. This is looking from across the street, catty corner. And then this is looking south and facing north from the alley. This is a pretty decent sized lot. And then this is looking along the alley. And here is what
There's
they're
the drum roll,
hoping to
huh?
build.
All right.
So this is probably what you guys really wanted to know.
That's right.
What he's hoping to build there is a 28-unit residential multifamily dwelling unit. Would have be for senior housing as well as for disabled housing. And as you can see, it would be right up against the street to fit the character of the neighborhood. And then in the back, there would be a deck with some of the parking underneath that deck, and then a lot of the landscaping would be accommodated on the deck itself. And I just wanted to note, they have, with the rezoning, if it's approved, they will not have to apply for a variance for their setback, but they will have to apply for a variance for their landscaping, and they've already done that. That variance would be considered tonight by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And they actually have enough landscaping points, they're just choosing to put it in an alternative fashion, because our regulations say 60% of your landscaping has to be in the front yard, front and corner side yards, and that's just not compatible with downtown development. Something that we're going to need to fix in our regulations. And so also they have applied for a variance from the landscaping requirements for the parking lot trees. They're only able to get one in here, but they do have a lot of covered parking, as you can see here. So staff is recommending approval of those variance requests. And here's the survey of the property. You can see it was several lots that were platted many, many years ago. And then a kind of a site plan here. This is the building shown up against the street. And then you would access from the alley. They will have to pave the alley. And
question.
We'll have two-way traffic, wide enough drive aisles to accommodate two-way traffic throughout the parking lot. And I think they have 29 parking spaces. So our regulations require 28, and they would have one extra for an office manager or visitor. And just some elevation drawings. They're not as beautiful as the colored rendering. So the first request is for amendment to the comprehensive plan land use map at the property located at 000 West Sherman Avenue.
So what's behind the name, The Link? Manskis, come on up and tell us a little bit.
She was trying to pass the buck to Dad.
Yeah.
So not.
Jack, he's comfortable where he is.
Jay Mansky, 8918 East Bradford Court, Wichita, Kansas. The link, actually, that is more probably a question for Brenda and Tech, but I think the general concept was that they thought that this project could really be a link between not only the two resident populations that would be in the building, but also for Tech's connection to downtown Hutchinson and the surrounding community. So, Brenda, if that is not at all correct, you can correct me, but I'm pretty sure that was our discussions. So it is a different name than when we actually came in front of the council back in February, but I would have to say is a better name than what Jack and I came up with originally.
When do you want to begin construction?
Well, assuming that we don't have an abnormally cold winter, I'm guessing we'll probably choose a contractor mid-December, and assuming that there isn't any issues with site work, the ground being too cold, I'd like to think that we could get started right around that time and finish up about this time next year.
Wow, cool.
Very good.
It's the amazing Mansky family.
I
that
know, we're
continually invest in the Hutchinson community. You've been just a great asset to our community.
And really, the architect isn't here for this meeting, but I would give a lot of credit to Sheldon Architecture.
Yeah.
We had a lot of kind of preliminary meetings with tech staff, kind of explained what our vision was for that site and this building. And I really think, based on the renderings, they took all of our comments and were able to come up with something that I think is going to be really attractive on that corner.
I'm going to ask a loaded question, and Mr. Deerdorf will understand where I'm going with this, but what has your experience thus far been with the city and on this particular project in terms of any issues, any impediments, any delays that you can recall?
You know, really this isn't our first rodeo here in town, so we actually know city staff pretty well. I would say it's pretty much the same as what it has been in the past, and that is if there are any issues that come up, kind of like the fact that the landscape requirements didn't really mesh with the C5 zoning, city staff was very helpful in explaining the process of going through the variance process. We had a kind of a preliminary meeting a couple of months ago with planning and then utility director, just kind of going over making sure that the city was aware of what we were talking about and they didn't see any major issues that might come up before just dumping a set of blueprints and saying, can you approve this in a week? And, you know, I think that was very helpful. And yes, city staff has been great. Jana, Amy, they've all done a good job of kind of directing us where we need to go.
We knew that was the case.
Yeah.
Just ask
Yeah.
you to reconfirm that. because We hear
We'll
some,
put
of,
it- we'll put
we
it
hear
on the
some of the
record.
other points
Yeah.
of view, and
Nice to hear
it's
it
so
was
good to
fun.
hear that. Yes, right.
Right answer.
Yeah. Except for John.
Well, that's a given. but yeah.
Well, we're
We understand
excited.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really excited for this and appreciate your investment and really enjoy seeing the partnership between the Manskys and Tech. And as long as I can remember, that corner's been empty.
Yeah. White Lumber, I believe that was the lumber company there.
In talking
Is that
to-
right, Chief? White Lumber, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and talking to the property owner that we purchased it from, he had mentioned it was a lumber yard, and then for a while after the lumber yard was gone, I think it was the Boy Scouts used that building for a little while before it was finally
right,
torn
yeah,
down.
right.
Yeah.
But again,
That is a long
that was a
time
few
ago.
decades ago.
What's the size of that lot, Jay? Do you know right off? Or Jana?
150 by 165. Yeah, 0.55 acres.
And from the drawings, there's not an ounce of wasted space either.
No.
No, and that really was the reason for the rezoning request. In order to do the building that we kind of envisioned for this project, it requires a zero lot line. We could build 28 units on that site, but with using the C4, it would have had to probably been 4 stories instead of 3. It would have been pushed back, so the first thing you saw was the parking lot. It
Yeah.
just wasn't really what we had, like I said, our vision for that site. So we really felt like the C5 was the way to go in order to get the building that you saw in that rendering.
So the Link project being built in 2018, and so we can look to 2019 or 2020 for another project from the Manskys in Hutchinson.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Oh, sure.
It's on
yes,
record.
I'd like to have that committed.
Yeah.
It really, it all comes down to, you know, just exactly what programs are left.
Right.
One concern I do have for maybe some future projects here in Hutchinson, but that's nationwide, is in
Historic
the tax
tax-
bill right now, they are
historic
talking
tax
about getting
credits.
rid of the historic tax credit
I see.
program, which would impact things like the Landmark and other older buildings in town.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen, but yes,
Okay.
2019, 2020.
All right.
We'll be here before you know
Got
it.
that in
By the way,
minutes.
an open invitation for you to become Hutchinson residents.
You know, I think we could claim dual citizenship at this point.
Probably right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Jana, I did have one question about this project, but more as a whole. When you look at something like this, it's really visionary and really exciting investment, and we have to go through a rezoning and variances, amendments. Are there places in our regulations that, I know we talk about this all the time, that can be streamlined so that investors looking don't have to jump through all those hoops?
So that's a good question. It's an excellent question, actually. We've met with, kind of in response to this, and it's also an action item in our comprehensive plan, is to look at our downtown zoning in particular and see if there's any way we can streamline that process. And so we've met with Jim Sightnader, is Jim here this morning? Oh, there he is. And identified areas around our key downtown that we think probably, I don't know if we want to include them as part of downtown, but maybe create some kind of overlay zone or something that would allow something like this to happen without having to go and rezone it. So yes, we're looking at it. We'll probably be coming back to you all, I'd say within the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months, with something that kind of recognizes the development patterns that exist downtown and in the surrounding neighborhoods and tries to respond favorably to what is actually there. Because the C4 zoning is a suburban, mall kind of zoning, and that's not what we have down here. So it doesn't really, it didn't fit his property. It's not going to fit redevelopment of a lot of the properties surrounding downtown.
That's so fantastic to hear, because I mean, I know the Manskys are so well versed in this, but the average developer isn't going to be and might experience some frustration. And I would just encourage us, anytime we're looking at our regulations, if there's any way we can engage the chamber or some of the business community and some input in that.
Sure.
I know we don't build our regulations around what the developers want to do, but
Right.
we need to have them in mind because we want their investment.
Yeah, so our use table is the next thing we're working on, the current
Mhm.
thing, and we do have the chamber as a partner in that.
Oh, great.
And so once that's done, then the downtown, we're just kind of doing the initial.
You kind of compress that,
The use table.
the use table?
We're trying.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, it just.
Please do.
It seems like we have a big staff and we have a great staff, but
Mhm.
you can only go as fast
Yeah.
as you can go.
Well, we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think. So thank you.
Kind of related to some excellent questions. I was just curious, that corner, and given, as you pointed out, the properties contiguous to it are up to the sidewalk. And so I was just kind of wondering, in terms of the comprehensive land use, why it wasn't C5 to begin with. And
Right.
I don't know
So
if you can just
when we
talk
did
about-
our zoning, our comprehensive land use map, we, for the most part, looked at what was properties are currently zoned and tried to match it.
Okay.
Because we didn't really want to, except for areas that were future growth areas, we didn't really want to make properties be automatically out of line with their underlying zoning. So this was just one of those properties that actually, I think it was an oversight when we did the zoning map years ago, because the county had it listed as C5 and we just didn't catch it. But we will be looking around. We have to be a little careful because some of those properties surrounding downtown are industrial, and industrial is not a use we want in our downtown. So just to change everything to C5 is not the solution. And so that's part of the reason why it takes us a little longer. We have to really think about, well, what are the impacts, and involving more people takes a little longer.
Yeah.
The one thing I noticed as well, excuse me, from a use standpoint, there wasn't a great deal of difference between the C5 and C4. I think we picked up like clothing manufacturing, shoes and footwear manufacturing, printing. They're
They are very similar.
Very similar in that respect. So I assume when you're consolidating those things, you'll look at to see. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have had good discussion on the project, the Link project. Is there any other questions from council? If not, do we have a motion?
I was going to, it pains me to change our award-winning comprehensive plan so early in the process, but I would move to approve ordinance providing for adoption of an amendment to the comprehensive plan land use map appearing at section M17B of the 2017-2037 comprehensive plan for Hutchinson, Kansas, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's call roll.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes. Next item.
And 8E, consider ordinance rezoning property on West Sherman.
I'll move to approve the ordinance amending the zoning map referred to in section 27-402 of chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hutchinson, as adopted by ordinance number 7518, and repealing certain parts of the original zoning map as designated in section 27-407, southwest corner of Sherman and Washington, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second. We all seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes. All right. Now we're into new business. Linda?
Item 9A, consider amendment to the Neighborhood Stabilization Program Agreement.
All right, good morning. Amy Allison, Housing Program Coordinator. As you guys might remember, last spring we brought to you, I guess I'll wait.
Thank you
until-
guys for coming.
Must have been
you.
something you said, Amy.
Yeah.
I know.
Come back soon.
All right. So last spring, we brought before you the closeout for the Neighborhood Stabilization Program grant, which we received from the state of Kansas. Also, we call it NSP. And when we submitted that work to the state of Kansas for their final review, they did have some notes that they would like us to change. Most of it was with our affiliate organization, New Beginnings, which they have provided all the information that the state requested. But the last piece was amending the affiliate agreement between the City of Hutchinson and New Beginnings, Inc., which you can see the two items that they requested amendment is under Exhibit 2. All that they're requesting is that we put into the agreement a statement enforcing the income eligibility requirements of the NSB for any applicants living in the properties of the also listed properties that they would like to add to that agreement that you can see on Exhibit 2. I don't really have anything else to add to this. It's just they wanted that to make sure that that agreement is final and everything that dollars went to is reflected in the agreement. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, so in 2020, they can charge market rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It seems bizarre that we're amending something that we wrote 10 years ago. Is that pretty common?
I think it was due to the fact that the closeout on this grant happened at a later date. So
I see what you're saying.
this is just their final review, and as they were reviewing all of the documentation that our grant administrator SCED delivered to them, they just noted that, and they wanted to have that before they closed out the grant completely.
Amy, do you know what the income guidelines are?
Not off the top of my head, but I think it is around 80% area median income.
I think they were listed at
Mm-hmm. They might have been, yes.
Yeah, they were listed at on the last page.
Yeah.
Oh, on the preview, the first exhibit?
I believe so.
Okay, missed that.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, I will move to approve the state's request to amend the Neighborhood Stabilization Program agreement to reflect affordability requirements of the grant and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call roll.
Iris De Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes. Next item.
Item 9B, consider Hutchinson Sports Arena rental policy.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Merrill Dye, the Assistant City Manager. For the development of an updated sports arena fee structure for the facility and services, a project team was put together that included representatives of the city and the Hutchinson Community College, which manages the facility through a contractual agreement. And that team included, along with myself, was Paul Brown, our city attorney, Angela Richard, our finance director, Justin Combs, our parks and facilities director, Craig Morrison, assistant parks and facilities director, and Manny Oltreas, who was a summer intern. From the Hutchinson Community College, we have the representatives of Julie Blanton, who is vice president of finance and operations, Josh Gooch, our athletics director at the college, and Don Rose, director of facilities. The team began their work on June 1st. We met several times and started out looking at the policy from 1996. And we also looked at other fee structures from various venues, not just in Kansas but around the country. But we quickly learned that a lot of these facilities don't reveal their rental rates. So the most useful tool for the team was really the Coke Arena at Wichita State University and Gowan Stadium. The proposed fee structure before you today includes 4 categories. Category 1 is school districts within city boundaries, nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, and a category called special events, which primarily would be used by the staff at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. The fees for services primarily provided by the Hutchinson Community College were broken down by personnel, which is actual hours, equipment, which is a flat rate per unit, and cleaning charges by room. After several meetings, we concluded our work, and then Manny Oltreas, our summer intern, and myself began working on the rental policy piece of this, and also the lease agreement and other appendices. We looked at entities again, across Kansas and other areas, including Gowan Stadium, Century 2, Tony's Pizza Civic Center in Salina, Muskogee, Oklahoma Civic Center, and Penn State University's Bryce Jordan Center, which is a basketball complex. We pulled policy language and just kind of pieced it together, primarily following Gowan, Century 2, and Penn State. We also visited with the city attorney for advice, as well as our fire inspectors, Tony Arpin and Michael Kane, and also a staff person in the Kansas Department of Agriculture under the food program, Sheila Mathis. On September 12th, we presented a proposed policy to the City Council during a study session. And there were some concerns expressed by the staff of the Convention and Visitors Bureau about the special events category and how to make that work within the complex challenge that they have in recruiting events to our community. The mayor asked staff to visit with the staff members of the Convention and Visitors Bureau and revisit this with them, and we did that on October 2nd when a joint meeting was held that included the CVB, the Hutchinson Community College, and the city representatives. There was a lot of good discussion, and what came out of that meeting was that the CVB would go ahead and develop an internal tool that they could use kind of based on economic impact to our community. And John Deardoff will share a little bit more information with you in a few minutes about that. We also asked that they try to fit within this, events for our community, fit that within those open windows, which quite frankly there aren't a great number of them, but since the college uses this facility for many of their athletic events.
But it is a city-owned building.
It is a city-owned building, that's right. In a meeting then on October 4th, Mr. Deardoff and Justin Combs, our Parks Director, and myself met, went over the policy again, and we decided, based on some advice from that study session with the council, to look at the rental rates and reduce those as proposed by 30%. So that's the big change that you will see in this policy. So with that, I'll pass it on to Mr. Deardoff.
We have a copy in your in your packet that really is the economic impact, I guess, schedule that we're proposing to use, and this again was developed by the convention or CVB, and it just provides the economic impact and what that would result in terms of reduction in fees. They have an organization at the State Tourism that they plug in certain information to determine what an event, what the actual economic impact is, and that would become part of the negotiated schedule, if you will, based on that event. And it's a place to start. And I know as we go forward on this, we really are learning a lot as we get different events in, and which ones really have an impact and which ones don't, and how much do we give away. And so I think this will be helpful in kind of setting a base, not to say that we don't deviate from this from time to time based on other circumstances beyond just the numbers. So it's a start.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Anything else that you have?
No.
I think, yeah.
I've just got 2 or 3 questions. For us lay people, we talk about economic impact. Do you know what goes into those items in terms of determining the economic impact, just for the benefit of the lay community?
It would be, hotel nights.
Hotel nights.
It would be estimated meals for the participants. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot that goes into that. You can get online. I've looked at it, trying to remember there's something else there. Also fees that they would pay, factor into that. But a lot of it is just the overnight, and I don't even think it has anything to do with attendance. It's more about what we know, and on the volleyball tournaments coming up, it's primarily participant impact. I mean, the teams, officials are here for a week, not so much on the attendance side. So that's true economic impact, I think. And so.
Pretty conservative.
I
think that's great.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard to factor in just the value of prestige of having a national event, regardless of whether it's, you know, bringing in X amount of dollars. It's just, there's something to that. You know, we're trying to make more things happen at the arena,
Yeah.
and hopefully this will help. And the goal is not to interfere with getting events here because of a rate schedule. Now, you know, we've said it before, you know, it cost us roughly, what I think Justin said it, $1,200 a day to have the building open, just on utilities alone. So, you know, when we approved our budget, we saw probably a almost $390,000 increase in electric utility fees at the sports arena, and a lot of this has to do with the college and their, you know, their cost to provide these services as well. So, you know, while we don't expect to recoup everything we spend up there, I think we have an obligation to at least try to offset some of that.
I want to speak a minute about the rental fees. How are they divided? Does the city retain all of the rental fees?
50-50.
50-50 between the city and the college?
Right.
Okay. So with that, guys, I don't know if you projected out, based on these new rental fees and, say, the last couple, three, or prior to the renovation and so on, what likely would the city realize in terms of rental income on an annual basis, or have you gotten that far, or can you tell yet?
Well, I don't, it's
I
not
don't see
going to be
how
a
you
lot.
could tell.
Well, I don't.
I mean, for example,
I don't know how many events we have out there.
The two events we got coming up this weekend,
Yeah.
next weekend, you know, it's a few $1,000s. I mean, the NJCAA is free. There's no charge for the volleyball tournament, just like there isn't for the basketball
Because of the
tournament.
economic impact.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, so as far as rental income, I don't see us.
You don't see a big
generating-
number?
No, I don't think it'll move the needle at all.
Okay.
Because a lot of these events coming in, hopefully, are going to have an impact that, you know, negates, offsets the rental fees, and then we get that through other means, sales tax, those kinds of things. So, I can look up here probably what
I'm just
our
curious.
rental
That's
income
fine.
has been,
Yeah.
but
It's-
it
but it's
doesn't move
minimal.
the needle.
Okay.
Yeah, and history, very little, because as we know, the college has been the primary tenant and use of that facility, but things are changing now with that renovation, so.
So as we progress, and I know you guys have been in conversations with the community college, a revised management agreement, where might that stand?
Well,
I'll tell you.
Sure.
Paul Brown, City Attorney. Some of the items that are incorporated with that, you're looking at one of them today.
Okay.
These are appendices to the current lease contract that we have, and some of these components, I'm waiting for them to be finished so that I can take care of the rest of that, and you will see that before the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask a few questions, Mayor?
Sure.
I'm thrilled with the partnership we have with the college. I think they do a phenomenal job, and we could not run that building without them. But it raises a red flag when I hear that any kind of tourism events are going to have to fit into tiny little slots that are few and far between, because this was sold to our community as a tourism generator, not a $29 million upgrade for the college. So I think we need to be really mindful of working with the CVB if they've got events that can generate income for our community, because as we know, it's stiff competition to get events here, and if we have 3 slots a quarter, that's not going to work. So I just want to put that out there, that we need to be doing everything we can to support those who are trying to increase sports tourism and the dollars that come with it. The other question I had was, I know we looked at the 96 rates at a study session, but I don't have those in front of me. When you did the comps between the other cities and the 96 rates, how do our rates now, are they a lot greater? I mean, I like what we did with the 4 categories. I know we had to see an increase, but I'm just wondering, are we going to discourage rentals on the nonprofit or the school side, especially with those rates, or are they pretty standard comparatively?
On the main arena, I think that we are lower than some of the other places, for example, Coke Arena. We're not always comparing apples to apples, though.
Yeah,
when we look at
it's
these
tough.
venues, again, we couldn't get rates for Hartman Arena or some of these other venues that are managed by a company who don't want to share those rates. What they want you to do is call them and negotiate. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well,
but
let's just look at it in comparison to the 96 rates. And I know that was 2 decades ago, and we need to see increases. But do you think there are events that are no longer going to happen because of the rental rates? That's all I'm concerned about.
Well, we reduced the rates by 30% since our study session. So, we haven't charged the schools for graduations. But I think Mr. Dairdoff gave a heads up to the, at least USD 308, that's coming.
Yeah. I just, we implemented this new special events policy, which I'm still a little uncomfortable with. And then with these rate increases, which I absolutely know have to happen when it costs $1,200 a day to open the doors. I just want to be careful that the council isn't doing anything to discourage events in our town, because we've got a lot of positive momentum on some of the events happening now. I guess I just wanted to say keep an eye out for that.
Well, and I don't think that's ever happened yet. I mean, we're recruiting and the effort's being made there. So there are some events that probably don't belong in the arena that are small enough that
could be at Memorial Hall.
It's it's more cost effective. But again, it's a matter of whether we want to attempt to cover any of our costs, and if not, then everything's free. And then that the college is a big part of this, because under the agreement, they operate that for the city, and so anytime there's an event there, they have to have people there, which is additional money. I mean, real money that they're paying out.
And I felt like the rates that they presented in this were reasonable.
Yeah,
$15 an hour for setup. I mean, that's very reasonable. We're not looking.
But as far as events, I mean, for 18 right now, we've got new events would be the junior college volleyball tournament that's coming up, the KCAC, and we're always going to have that conflict with the college, and you address that, and that's always going to be there because they, by right, they're in that arena. That's their home. They have games, basketball season is basketball season and volleyball is volleyball season. And so far, and it hadn't been easy, I think they've been pretty flexible in working around these 2 events we've got coming up in November. And I've heard it on the radio playing, their first, 5 or 6 games on the road, which isn't advantageous, but it had to happen. And so after March is over, we got April, May, June, July, August, in September. That's 7 months that there really is not much college programming going on there. So the problem is a lot of these events we've looked at are all focused in on that November time frame, or maybe even March. So November to me is a tough time now. March, obviously, with the 3A, the NJCAA tournament, there's only a couple other weekends there that can work. So there's really 7 months out of the year that college, if they were here today, would say, hey, have at it, because we're not in there.
Yeah, and I don't mean to imply at all that the college hasn't been fantastic, because they are great. But it is the city as a whole that is paying that additional 0.35% sales tax on that building.
Correct.
With regards to Category 4 negotiable, who is doing the negotiating?
CVB.
CVB?
I mean,
and consult with
do
me.
You have discretion.
And that's why I kind of joked that whatever it is, whatever it comes out on this deal, it'll always be, well, they don't really want to pay that much, and so
can we deviate or can we not?
So that's kind of how it goes, and until we have, we haven't had a lot of experience with anything yet, other than some that were kind of already there, the NJCAA event, but we'll learn more as they bring more prospects or projects to the arena. So, but
I would also
it hadn't been just easy in
Well,
terms
it's
of
going to be a learning
coordination.
process, like you said.
Yeah.
We're a little new to this, so. But I would also ask that we don't forget, like for example, the Hutchinson Rec. It's not going to have the economic impact, but again, it was sold as a community item that they can host events there as well. I know they have their the practice gyms are sometimes utilized for basketball games and stuff for the local kids as well. Not the impact, but it is a local asset and being used.
Yeah, and they're there, and there's no fees charged there.
Right.
So,
right. So
yeah.
another win for the local
For sure.
community.
That's a good point, Dave.
Couple questions. John, remind me, what's the amount of hard cash money that the community college is putting into the sports arena and the renovation?
4.5 million.
4.5.
Is that from their endowment or from their mill?
It's from their property taxes, yes.
Okay, so again, that's all coming from the same pocket. Sometimes
Well,
we
I
forget.
think it is, but they did. I mean, they did contribute, and that's. I mean, I've heard both sides, and the college has always said, and I respect their opinion on this, is that that's home. I mean, this isn't just an arena that they show up and play in every now and then. That's their home, and for all their programs, and has been for since 1950, and so we got to be respectful of that, as well as the flexibility when we've got a good opportunity to be flexible. And I think I've seen some of that. Like I said, it hadn't been easy. Had to work through a few things, but unfortunately, I get pulled into some of that conversation. So.
You answered one of my questions, but I still wanted to kind of ask it and maybe have a little bit of conversation. I was going to ask about the volleyball tournament and how that fit into this proposal. And you indicated there's not a fee. Would we be looking at fees for sport championship tournaments and those kind of things in terms of the negotiable, the Category 4? Or might we have the practice of not charging any fees thus far when it comes to those kind of things?
Yeah, I think the kind of the things we have on the board now are, that's a good question, are free. I mean, the 3A state tournament, we've had that for years. That's free. We don't see anything out of that. I mean, we see a lot out of it as a community, but from here, the NJCA men's basketball, the NJCA women's volleyball now, the KCAC, which is a new event that they brought in, are paying maybe $1,200 for a 4-day tournament based on the old rate.
Because the negotiating came in under the old rate. Yeah.
So,
where would the volleyball tournament fall on this sports arena rental rates and economic impact? Do we know?
It would be the $1 million plus.
It's in the $1 million plus category.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on the
number I saw. Yeah, and the men's would be
that
same.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's maybe that's a starting point, but in some cases the association says, hey, if we're going to host a national tournament there, we're not we're not paying anything, and that happens. So,
well, I'm not necessarily proposing that we do or don't, but just kind of wondering where those things fall.
They would fall into that, yeah.
So at that $1 million plus, we're looking at a 60% off the qualifying category plus a reduction in the personnel costs associated, which I don't know if you'd call them school activities, but they're related to schools. Even if they weren't, well, then definitely not for-profit businesses, it would make the rates pretty, I think, competitive or pretty reasonable at a 60% reduction basis. So kind of going back to some of what Jade. Oh, I guess it was something I said. Maybe we need to look at talking about some rate, and so mainly a comment there. But it certainly brings those $1,000 a day down significantly. Then,
personally, I think we need at least a year of this to discover what actually transpires before we, get too hard and fast on things.
Certainly, we don't want to wait 18 years again to
but,
revisit it. But
this is a whole new territory for us, and I think we're going to have to look at this year as figuring out what we're doing and where we're going, and come back a year from now and say, okay, now did this work or did it not
Oh,
work?
I agree with you. I'm not saying
Yeah.
do it now or you
Yeah.
should have done it yesterday, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and
Looking at what the staff have put together and what
Mm-hmm.
conversation brought it to, I think it's a good proposal. I think we also need to, after we get a little more experience, take a
Oh,
look
yeah,
at what
you
we
got- you gotta
propose,
come
and
back to it.
it makes a change from the numbers that pop out at $1,000 a day or $1,500 a day or whatever, and might be something
Right.
worth pursuing.
I mean, in the past, the rates haven't been, I think I looked, our revenue was like $7,000. So rates have
Yeah.
not been an issue because primarily the college was 90% of the usage up there. Well, in the summertime, it's basically closed down. There's no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Well, that all has changed now. And, you know, for example, here we've got K through 12, you know, main arena for graduation, so it's $1,000. Is that something we should, I mean, that's what we're proposing there, and that question's gonna come up, and, that'd be 313, that'd be 308, and, those two. So, you know, it's a big deal to have air conditioning now for those, you know, for those events, but is that, and the college is gonna staff that for the whole day and the day of, the day before, setting it up? I mean, should there be a cost for that? And under this proposal, there is. It's $1,000 a day, which, in my mind, doesn't seem a huge amount for a graduation of 350 people and the place is packed. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
no, it's
and
full.
it's gonna be, you know, a good environment and different than what they've had. So, I suppose I ask that now because that question will come up probably the first. So,
And if you've ever attended an HHS or HCC graduation in the summer months, you would have gladly paid a ticket to,
Yes, you would.
to
You would.
have AC, probably.
Yeah.
and I always hear it's all out of the taxpayer pocket. Well, it is, but it's, you know, it's a different pocket. And, you know, we're paying minimum $1,200 a day just to have the lights on, and not that that's going to move the needle, but it's something. So, and I think those agencies appreciate the fact that now they have that facility that they do not have to hold their graduation. So,
This has nothing to do with the rental fees, but I get quite a bit of feedback from folks who attend HCC basketball games of late in terms, can't you turn the air conditioner up a little bit? So I think it's an issue. I don't know where we are with all that climate control and
turn air
Maybe it's
conditioner
too
up.
cool.
too cool. Yeah, too cold. Yeah,
Oh,
right.
it's- yeah,
way,
it's too
way
cold.
too cold. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I mean,
I don't know who
it's-
controls that
college
and how it's
operates
controlled, but
that,
it's.
and I think, have you heard, you heard that last year? this
I
year?
heard it I heard it last week,
Yeah.
2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Well, I've been in there in the middle of the day, and it's
It's
chilly.
nippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nippy.
So the college does that. I can pass that along. I mean,
Yeah,
they've
pass
got
it
a
on to them.
Climate control. I mean, it's a pretty sophisticated system. I think
Yeah.
you heard it.
Yeah,
one
I've heard
meeting
it,
we had.
yeah.
So we can certainly.
There's
talk
got to
about
be
it.
an art, though, to
Oh, I'm sure,
cooling
too.
or
Cooling
heating
those
that amount of
zones. Yeah, that
space,
space, those
and
zones.
pleasing all the people all the time situation.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that second part's not going to happen.
That's it. My wife and I run at 2 different temperatures, so
Yeah.
somebody's going to
Yeah.
lose out.
I'm
So.
sure the college has heard that too.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion on this item in terms of the rental policy?
The last thing I would say, just to reiterate
Yeah.
your point, Councilman Solderman, is that it is a process. And, you know, this isn't a law that can't be changed or a policy. It's very flexible, and as we learn more, we're going to probably need to do that. So just what we do today doesn't mean it's set in stone like the last one was since 1994. So it's very fluid, I think.
You know, I anticipate that we'll have a report a year from now saying this worked, this didn't work, and these are things we need to change.
With that, I would move to approve staff's recommendation to adopt the Hutchinson Sports Arena rental policy with an effective date of November 7th, 2017.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Let's call roll.
Carmella, Soldner,
Yes.
Zinsky,
Yes.
Deckent.
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Merrill, good job.
We are gonna
I-
take-
it was not an
yeah.
easy an issue to wade through, and a lot of different interested parties. one of which is us.
Thank you.
But good job.
Had a lot of good help, a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have been directed, and I'm 10 minutes past due. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
Yes, we are.
You know, I looked a little bit ago, and it was only about 10.
Item 9C, consider work authorization number 1 with Burns and McDonnell for Fourth and Carey Site Monitoring Program.
This is never going to go away, is it?
Not in your lifetime or mine.
I know.
It's getting better, though.
At some point it will.
You promised.
There may be a lot of different faces in this room, but at some point it will. Actually, and forgive me, good morning, Council.
Yeah.
Don Kochi, Environmental Services Manager. As you may recall, back in April 18th to be specific, the Council approved work authorization with CDM Smith for the Fourth and Carey project work. It was actually the 21st such work authorization with CDM since the inception of the Fourth and Carey project work began. However, shortly after that work authorization was approved, city staff was informed in April that CDM Smith had permanently closed their Wichita branch office. But at that time, they advised us that they would keep certain essential staff employed that would work out of their homes essentially and oversee the Fourth and Carey project work. Following that, shortly after that in May, city staff was then advised that the remaining CDM Smith staff that was going to be kept on had been terminated and would no longer provide project work and oversight. That being the case, the city staff has been dealing with the project coordinator from the Denver office on the project to this point. And from June to October of this year, the first task of that work authorization was completed for the semi-annual sampling and reporting round. However, as I said, CDM utilized staff from their Denver and Kansas City offices to complete that field sampling and reporting. Following the CDM local office elimination and the staff layoff, city staff determined that it really needed to reassess the utilizing CDM Smith for the Fourth and Carey project based on a few important reasons. One was the elimination of the Wichita office removed the responsiveness capability of local competent or consulting staff. Having experienced local staff benefited the city by providing more readily available response to field site visits as well as face-to-face meetings when needed. Prior to the release of the local CDM staff, the city was provided consultants having a historical familiarity and vast experience with the Fourth and Carey project site, which was a definite plus. The loss of that staff, having that kind of knowledge and project history, knowing the site facilities, the monitoring wells, the local hydrologic conditions, is not something that could be easily replaced. Also, with closing of CDM's Wichita office, city staff has concerns about the potential increases in mobilization costs, including travel, overnight stays, meals, car rental, for those folks coming out of town for consulting staff to do the field sampling and also to attending meetings as well. And then the final reason for reassessing the consultant use is that in the past year, additional sampling and monitoring requirements have been put into place by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for the OB landfill Superfund site. The increase in that sub-site work, coupled with the loss of the expertise with the Fourth and Carey project, provides justification for, in our minds, consolidating the remediation work to one consulting firm. And currently Burns and McDonnell, who had the historical background and work on the OB site, is the current consultant for the OB site. Because of that, the city had requested a cost proposal from Burns and McDonnell for the remaining work under the current work authorization for 2017. The remaining contract with CDM would provide an additional project work for this year to be completed at a cost not to exceed $63,671.33. So the issue in front of the council today is that the professional services agreement and work authorization with Burns and McDonnell is being proposed an amount of $56,600 for the remaining work for Fourth and Cary project in 2017. That contractual amount would be $7,071.33 less than the current remaining amount under a CDM contract. The work authorization is based on estimates per task to be billed on actual cost basis and provides for the following tasks. Task number 80, 81, and 84. Task 80 is the annual site-wide monitoring, field work, and reporting, consisting of sampling and analysis of 42 monitoring wells in the amount of $27,300. Task 81 is the development of a work plan for a remediation pilot study to accelerate the cleanup of the final remaining source area site in the Fourth and Cary area. And then task 84 is for additional client support services as needed in the amount of $7,000. You may notice that task 82 and 83 are not included in this. Task 82 was actually eliminated for the 2017 year. And task 83 was actually for the remediation and irrigation project work that was actually completed entirely by city staff. So there are no charges on that to be included. Based on that, if the contract is approved, the current contract with CDM Smith will be terminated. We have to provide them 14 days under the existing contract notification, although they are aware of our actions and steps taken, and they did respond essentially that they really couldn't come back with any better options for us. So. The fiscal impact, these work authorizations, as before, will come out of the water funds, water remediation account. And based on these findings, staff recommends approval of the service contract with Burns & McDonnell in the amount of $56,600.
Don, so I understand what you've outlined there. The start date for the contract with Burns & McDonnell would be when did that occur? And then I understand it expires December 31, right?
It would expire December 31, but typically, as some of the CDM contracts in the past have actually gone past the calendar year, because some of those items don't get wrapped up for payment and on expenditures until sometime the following year. So that's normally how that
And then
works.
when did they actually begin doing contract work?
As far as Burns & McDonnell?
As far as Burns & McDonnell,
well, Burns
yes,
& McDonnell, the current contract we have with them is for the OB site.
For the OB site, okay.
And that was approved back in 2016.
That was separate, right.
And that work was actually done this spring and summer, and that has been concluded up till now, although there are a few items on it left to be done on that contract.
Okay.
This contract will be a separate agreement specifically for Fourth and Cary.
Fourth and Cary.
Which will then conclude sometime in 2018 as well, once these three items are completed on as far as the tasks. At that point, we would come back next year with the next work authorization, and also what we may want to be looking at, which we haven't had that discussion yet, is possibly doing some sort of combined work authorization, so we don't have to bring both of these in front of the council at separate times and just break them out into two separate groupings and then one total cost. But again, we haven't had those discussions, but that is certainly a possibility and one advantage to having one consultant on both projects.
Okay, that clarifies the process.
Dawn, where's Burns and where are they located? Are they out of Wichita?
Yes, they have a actually a well-staffed office in Wichita. They have a lot of field staff, hydro and folks who are familiar with the hydrogeology here of the area, similar to what kind of what CDM used to have in the area. And then they also have their primary office for this region is out of Kansas City, which they do have staff there that are involved with this as well. But the primary field staff, the people doing the traveling and most of the communications are with the Wichita office.
Are there other companies around that do this kind of work?
Oh, there are other companies.
Not necessarily outside, I mean, at least within the region, if not even in Wichita.
I mean, there are a lot of environmental consultants out there, and there are a number of them that have offices in the Wichita area. Our concern is we want to have somebody who's understands this area, understands the hydrogeology of the area, is familiar with the projects, because there are multiple projects in the area, not just ours. We've got the OB site, the Fourth and Cessna site, which Burns McDonnell's also the environmental or a consultant on that one. There's 2 or 3 other different projects. We've got a chloride remediation site going on that the city's kind of has ties to accepting high chloride water from the old Cary Salt facility, as it turns out. Burns McDonnell's the consultant on that. So having that wealth of knowledge and background on the site, and also avoids duplication of efforts, because some of these monitoring wells actually get sampled by multiple projects. So in the past we've had to work out between consultants to try to save money on this. Well, now it's under one hat would certainly make it a lot easier to be able to do
So is everything that we're monitoring with this now being monitored by Burns and McDonnell?
It will be if this is approved.
Or will
today.
be, yeah.
Okay, I was wondering the same question. Is this going to come before us again? No, if we make the switch now, CDM Smith.
Well, in a year, we have a work authorization come in front of the council every year.
Right.
Now, by going to Burns and McDonnell, we should be able to put that just under one contractual agreement versus having one with CDM and one with Burns and McDonnell coming to you twice each year. So,
should we, or have we had put these out for a competitive bid in the past?
We haven't, because of the history and the familiarity with the project and the hydrogeology of the site, and having that professional background and understanding and history of the site is pretty critical. And honestly, I mean, you look at the proposal here, we came in about 7,000 difference on this. You're not going to see a lot of differences on it. And for what you get for the staff and the expertise and having that local piece of the puzzle, to me that's critical, and that's why we kept with CDM as long as we did for the number of years that we contracted with them, is because of
Understood.
The folks that really had an intimate knowledge of the area, the facilities, and like I said, the hydrogeology.
What was the total contract amount for this year with CDM?
I believe it was $114,119.
So just right at half of that amount, or close
Roughly.
to it, had been expended thus far.
Yeah. Well, part of that wasn't expended. As I said, there's 2 tasks. One task for
Right.
5,000 that was that was excluded, and then the other one for 4,400 that city staff actually
took
all
care
that
of.
work.
I heard mention of a 14-day notice. Is there any sort of penalty for
Yeah.
breaking the contract now?
Not from what I'm no attorney, but from what I read, I didn't see anything.
Are you an attorney?
We'll find out.
Okay. And I did pick up also, or I thought I did, that we kind of pay as we go, so there's no pro rata return for
Correct.
anything that we've. Okay.
Correct.
All right. I guess I'd be interested in the penalty piece. but
Okay, any other
we'll find
questions?
that out.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the professional services contract and work authorization with Burns and McDonnell in the amount of $56,600 for the remaining 2017 Fourth and Cary site monitoring program and other services, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call roll. Thank you, Don.
Iris De Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave-Line?
Yes. All right, next item.
Item 9D, consider KDOT Bridge Inspection Supplemental Agreement.
Good morning, Council. Bruce Colley, Director of Engineering.
You're a patient man, Bruce.
Well, I try to be meek and humble as well, so thank you very much. I understand there's some confusion, and I apologize for that confusion regarding the briefing for what you're about to talk about today. However, I think that on a positive note, it's going to be a learning experience for all of us, and so we'll better understand as to what the bridges are inspected, how often they're inspected, et cetera. And I must thank Brian Clennon for coming to my office and providing some genesis that predated Bruce to help understand the issues here. There was an initial briefing that was attached to the supplemental agreement that we're going to talk about today. And in that agreement, it talked about 64 bridges, and it talked about biennial inspection of those 64 bridges. And then it went on to say the city of Hutchinson has 66 bridges encompassed by this inspection. What we have is we have a total of 66 bridges in the city of Hutchinson that KDOT oversees inspections on. 64 of the bridges every 2 years are inspected by private consultants. Then KDOT sends in 2 separate teams of peer consultants to review what the consultant found or analyzed, whether it was fractures or criticals, or is the bridge okay. And again, that occurs every 2 years. Our last one was done this year in 2017, and the total cost for that was $13,030 is what we paid to our consultant. Now we've got 2 other bridges, which is Airport Road Bridge. There's a southbound bridge and a northbound bridge. And then we've got the bridge over Cow Creek out here off 4th. And those are inspected every year. And that is what this supplemental agreement is applied to. And the bridge types themselves these are pin and hanger bridges, and basically what that means, a slab comes up to a support column, and there's a hanger in there that kind of takes your bump as your truck goes over, and there's a pin in there, and that hanger does this. That pin will wear out. So that's a pin and hanger bridge. The one over Cow Creek is basically a steel girder bridge to where it's here and it's here, and that girder in here can get cracks or fractures, and that's called a fracture critical bridge. So that's what they inspect there. So that kind of gives you a rough idea of what those 2 terminologies mean. Part of the issue was that we had an original agreement with KDOT back in 2015, and in that 2015 agreement that we had executed with KDOT is they had was called a structures list, special attachment number 2, and it was blank. So I'm thinking, well, why is it blank? So I went ahead and I contacted the structures district and told them, look, our original agreement with you in 2015 was blank for this supplemental attachment number 2. What is it? And so they sent this attachment to me, and I just received that last Thursday. And that outlines that we have the 4th Avenue bridge, and then we've got northbound Airport Road and southbound Airport Road, and they also were kind enough to provide the estimated cost. So that sort of brought the whole puzzle together, if you will, and so I issued to Linda late Friday a new cover or briefing for your council packet today. Am I making sense so far?
Sort of.
Sort of? Okay. So in reviewing the original agreement that was done in 2015, this is a supplemental, and financially, what impact does that have to the city? The original agreement from 2015, the share was 80% KDOT and 20% for the city for both bridges, Airport Bridge and 4th Avenue. What they've done is they've said, well, I tell you what, we're not going to pay for fracture critical anymore. That's all the city's cost. We're taking our 80% out.
Okay.
For the pin and hanger bridges, we're still going to go ahead and stay 80-20. So I provided the cost, and this is based on what I received from KDOT. The financial change for the Airport Road Bridge actually went down. It was $3,200 last year. This next year, according to their projections, it's going to be $2,925. And the 4th Avenue Bridge, we're going to pay for by ourselves, which is going to be a net increase, cost to the city, of $2,525. So that brings you together. We've got 64 that are inspected every 2 years. We've actually got 2 that are inspected every year. And this supplemental agreement is referring to the 2 that are inspected by KDOT every year. And with that, staff recommends that council authorize the mayor to sign the attached supplemental agreement number 1 to go ahead and forward that to KDOT. And I'm sure there may be some questions I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, the second communication that we got, I got lost in the finances. You said that the inspection cost for the Airport Road Bridge is going to be $295.25?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because that's not how this reads, but that's okay. Okay, so $295.25 and $2,525. So so we're looking at about $54.50
Yes.
total. Okay.
For my own clarification, 5450, that's total,
That's both bridges.
both bridges.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
This year versus last year, which would have been 3,100?
Yes.
So there's
Yeah.
our net difference, okay.
Okay.
When was the 4th Street Bridge rebuilt?
I do not know the answer to that.
Is that one that
Mr.
was
Dave Line.
recently rebuilt?
Which bridge?
Well, the one he's referring to.
Cow Creek?
Cow Creek?
Is it Cow Creek? Is that the bridge you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And is that the one that was recently rebuilt?
Actually,
Oh, yeah.
this is
Oh, the over.
this is 4th Avenue over the what KDOT indicates is 4th Avenue over the AT and SF Railroad.
Oh.
Okay, so it's really it's an overpass.
So that's the
Yeah.
overpass. And that
That's
was
the
one that was
overpass.
rebuilt some years ago.
Well, a
5
couple
years
years
ago.
ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
2 or 3, I don't know.
And then Airport Road was recently rebuilt in the last 18 months to 2 years?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was last
So
year.
it's still a requirement that those be inspected annually regardless of the age of them, right?
Yes,
That's
sir, that is
advisable,
correct.
or that's a requirement
That's a requirement
That's
by KDOT.
by KDOT
Yes, sir.
for annual inspections? of those
Annual
two?
inspection on those two bridges, yes.
I know we have all different kinds of sizes of bridges, and I'm trying to picture some others in my mind, but, so these 2 bridges cost us now $5,000 plus a year, and the other 64 costs us $13,000 every 2 years. Now, we're talking a lot of small bridges, but don't we have some other fairly large ones besides those 2, or am I just,
Actually, no.
no, those
No.
are the only
Apparently
really 2
no.
large ones that we've got,
Those
okay.
are-
Well, those are the 2
Box.
large ones that are of critical, potential of critical failure. And the pin and hanger bridge is, as I tried to explain,
Right.
with that pin can snap or crack depending on the metal, and it could have been an imperfection from the factory, so that's why they require annual. The steel girders, if there's a crack in that steel girder, a weld or something like that, so that's why those are the critical bridges. The rest of them are more stable of construction type, if you will, and they don't see the loads that those two do.
And the change in percentage split, or I guess it's not even a split, now we're 100% responsible for the 4th Street Bridge.
Yes.
Under did the previous agreement expire, or did it include saying if KDOT wants to charge us or not charge us, or share with us or not share with us the cost, they can just tell us and that's it?
I went through the previous agreement and it did not have a sunset, and it did not indicate anything that there's a termination and term and termination clause will remain in effect for 1 year from the effective date of the master agreement. And so there was really nothing language-wise that said that they couldn't change it or we couldn't change it. However, this supplemental agreement came through, and I went through and identified each one of the elements of change from the 2015 original agreement, and each one of them identifies elements that are related to a fracture critical bridge. For some unknown reason, and I've been told it was related to the Federal Highway Administration and the funding that comes through KDOT for the fracture critical as opposed to pin and hanger. But they just sent this supplemental and said, here is the new agreement.
Here's the new fees, huh?
For the city. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm guessing if KDOT wants to change the rules, they can change the rules.
So they could send us something next year that says that the split of costs for the airport road is going to be whatever.
That is correct. It could be supplemental too next year.
And again, the existing contract allows that?
From what I've read, yes, and I'd be happy to turn it over to Mr. Brown to.
I can tell you my experience with KDOT. Most of their contracts are non-negotiable anyway. So
here it is. Do it.
Yeah, it really doesn't give you anywhere to go.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nobody else we could have inspected or whatever else. They're a one-man show, or they've got the monopoly on it, and that's it, huh?
I thought it was City Hall you couldn't fight. Apparently it's KDOT.
State government.
Okay.
Quick question too, just for my own benefit. The two bridges that gain access to South Hutchinson, who's responsible for those?
We are responsible for those two bridges. Our responsibility stops at the Arkansas River.
Does it in fact? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Curious. Thank you.
Yes.
I guess I don't understand the answer. I mean, you
There's
said we're responsible, but then you said it stops.
I assume South Hutchinson's responsible for the other.
Reno County.
Reno County.
Reno County.
Yeah,
There's a bridge over.
Woody Seed is city until you get to the river.
That's true. And what kind of a bridge is that?
They're both fracture critical.
So why aren't they being inspected?
They are inspected.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the 64.
Yeah.
And
but that seems to be a bridge that's very comparable, if not even longer or bigger or whatever than the.
Well, it's of the same construction, the fracture critical. So
Yeah.
I assume the county is also participating or changing their split on the. Am I wording that properly?
The bridge over the Arkansas River is a pin and hanger bridge, and that's when you cross over that and you see those little metal strips.
Yeah.
Each one of those is where that deck is allowed to deflect in that pin and that hanger.
So it'd still be an 80-20.
If you drive over the Avenue A bridge and what would that be? Would it be C? That's why you don't have anything in the center. It's a fixed bridge, and they're in tired shape. We're actually going to be analyzing the Avenue A bridge within the next year or two.
But they aren't required to be inspected annually.
No, biannually.
I think we
Thank
just
you.
we need a calendar, Bruce, that says, okay, this year this is gonna happen, and in 2 years from now, these are gonna happen, so that we can understand which ones are going when, so.
I can definitely do that because
Yeah.
I've got all the bridges identified.
Yeah.
Logged,
Well, see, and I would guess that I have no clue where those 64 bridges all are.
Yes, yes.
Probably most of the time we did this on the consent agenda is probably
Yeah.
why. Yeah, you may not remember some of this conversation because it's a pretty routine
routine.
process.
Yeah, so
And
we
we're
don't
making it
have-
unroutine, aren't
Well,
we?
I just,
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
well, part of it's on
Good
us,
point.
too. No, we complicated a little bit with the memo mix-up, so.
But I will be happy to provide you the complete listing along with a description, so
Sure.
you'll be able to add them all up.
Yeah, we want that, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, well, data's important. Anyway. Okay, do we have any more questions about this old jewel? Okay. I will move to approve supplemental agreement number 1 with the Kansas Department of Transportation and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call roll.
Iris De Carvalho,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Inskeep.
Yes.
Deckent.
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes. All right, next item.
Thank you.
Item 9E, golf course improvements
Didn't think that'd
presentation.
get that complicated, did you?
Justin's the
Here's the really
Here's the one.
patient people.
He told me he thought he was first on the agenda today.
Yeah.
I was on an early draft. I was trying to
Early
figure out
draft?
what
Oh,
did
you
I
got
do
demoted,
the
huh?
last week.
Shame on those people.
Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities. I just want to take a few minutes just to go over the golf course master plan and kind of where we're at. Every year in the budget process, we talk about what the next phase are and what it's going to cost, but I'd like to really just give us kind of a holistic view of what we've done so far and what our next phase is. The master plan was approved in 2003, so 14 years ago. And we've accomplished several phases. The first phase we did was holes number 14 and 17. Redid all the irrigation as well as a new greens complex on hole number 14. Next phase was holes 13 and 18, again new irrigation and a new central pump station to feed all the irrigation. The third phase we completed was holes number 1 and holes number 9 with irrigation as well as a new green on number 1. Also, as part of that phase, we addressed the driving range, regraded the driving range, new irrigation on the driving range. So that's kind of where we have come from in 14 years. This doesn't seem like a lot. It's really only 3 phases in that time span. Part of that was due to funding. The project was not a high priority in past years' budgets. However, the past several years, it has taken a greater priority through the budget process. So that brings us then kind of up to more current times. In 2016, we applied for a grant with the USGA, which is the United States Golf Association, and the USGCA, American Society of Golf Course Architects, a grant to really take a look at our master plan, take a modern look at it, put new eyes, fresh set of eyes on the plan to see if that master plan is still accurate. Is that still where the course needs to go? Through that process, we began working with Taylor Zimmelman from Zimmelman Golf Course Design. And really he did a lot of investigation on the course, really looked over the master plan, and kind of came at it with a new set of eyes. And so under this kind of revised master plan, as we're approaching the next phases of the development of the course, or the improvements to the course. And the next phase is holes 2, 3, and 4. Those phases were budgeted in 2016 and 2017. That was actually in the bond sale. It was approved about, 3 hours ago. Feels like.
2.5, Justin. 2.5.
You worked that in, huh?
Is that obvious? A couple hours.
And we're not done.
We're not done. We got a great presentation. So with that, we do have Matt Miller from the Golf Course here as well to answer any really challenging questions. Tyler was here, but he had to run. He had a family issue he had to deal with. But with that, I want to introduce Taylor. Taylor is the architect who's been working on these three holes, and he'll give you more detail on what the process is, what the holes are going to look like. As you'll notice on the agenda, we're not looking for any formal action today. It's really just an update on kind of where we're at with the development of the course. So with that, we'll introduce Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Taylor Zimbelman. I'm from Wichita, Kansas. Grew up here and born and raised in Kansas, but I'm a golf course architect. I've been practicing for the last 17 years, designed and built golf courses around the United States and the world. And like he mentioned, that about a year and a half ago, I was fortunate enough to be selected to participate in the evaluation program that was funded by the USGA and the ASGCA, which I'm a member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, and I was the architect selected to participate in that part of the program. And during that time, was formed these relationships with the staff, and they informed me of this master plan project that they're in the process of, and I'm grateful that they've asked me to kind of help them on through this next phase, phase 4. Right here is an aerial of the golf course. Phase 4 again is going to be holes 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to do a little bit of work on a portion of hole 6T. Kind of this whole process, I wanted, you know, the golf course is an 85-year-old golf course, and it's a fabulous, what I'd call parkland-style golf course. Being down next to the river, it's fairly flat, has trees. One of the greatest benefit is that it's next to the river, I believe, is the soils are very sandy, which makes it drain well, and you can do more things with the golf course with that sort of soil structure versus a clay or rock or some other more challenging type soil structure. So when we kind of were looking at these 3 holes, and again, we were kind of also looking at the original master plan, which had very good ideas and very good bones. But over time, golf course, like a lot of things, change. And it's important to realize that all items on the golf course do have a life cycle. Just like the road outside, eventually the road is going to wear down, get a pothole, and have to fix it. The same is true for a golf course tee or a bunker or a green, that eventually it's going to wear down or the sand's going to get contaminated, and you have to put money towards improving those things, or else they'll be, continue to deteriorate. So with these 3 holes, we're trying to kind of identify some of these areas that are maybe would be graded lower on the health scale of items for the golf course, and try to use the funds available to not only improve those, but also at the same time kind of keep in mind our end user is our public, our golfers, and we want to keep this golf course enjoyable for them, playable for them, and we also want to not necessarily change the character of the golf course because it is such kind of a classic golf course, but we just want to improve these items of the golf course, maybe kind of wearing thin on their life cycle while we're going through this renovation project. Here's kind of just an update of the scope of the project. Really, the primary driving force is the addition of a new irrigation system.
No pun intended. The drive there.
No pun intended.
It's too late in the meeting for jokes. Sorry about that.
The existing irrigation system, the main line, was built in the 50s, and it's old ductile iron, and the laterals and heads are from early 80s. So as far as life cycle goes, that's well past its life cycle. So the new irrigation system is the primary driving of this, but since we're getting into that, that also gives us the opportunity to hit some of these other things that need updated: tees, bunkers, greens, and some of the grasses around the golf course. Like I said, the goal is kind of to improve the conditions and playability, but we want to make sure that we're still developing a golf course that's enjoyable to all the golfers. It has to be fun to play. That should be goal number 1. let's kind of get into a little bit more detail with each hole. Hole number 2 is an existing par 5. We'll start at the tees. We got, and it's true not just on this hole, but around the golf course, there's kind of a hodgepodge or a disconnect in the sizing and what I would call the quality of the tees. Some of the tees are very, very big. Some of the tees are very, very small. Some of them have settled and are not flat anymore. So we're going to update all the tees, all the tee grounds. We're going to size them appropriately to the amount of play each tee receives, and basically just give it, that facelift, that this golf course needs. We're going to still keep it as a par 5 because of the area right or south of hole 2 and kind of in between holes 2, 3, and 4. You'll see a kind of a triangle area that's kind of unutilized space out on the golf course. We're actually going to shift hole 2, and when we get to hole 4, you'll see that we shifted hole 4 so that we're actually utilizing that space a little better and improving the strategy of the golf hole by creating more of a dog leg and less of a straight hole, but more of a dog leg type hole, which will help visually enhance the bunkers and how the golfer will attack and plan to play each hole. You can see new bunkering that kind of helps shape that dog leg in and around the golf hole. This green will stay as is. The fairway on this hole will get some new turf grass that will be actually taken from hole 4, I believe. Matt? No. This is Noizuja on this one? Okay. Because it's one of the poorer fairways. So it'll be completely sodded new with new zoysia grass, which is a grass that's going to be better for the climate that we have here in Kansas, and is less drought tolerant, and the ball sits up nice and high, and the golfers really like it. Moving to hole 3. Again, we're doing some of the same things. We're going to, some of the forward tees are very, very small here, so we're going to actually level those out and get them a little bigger, get a little bigger space for the forward tee players. This green is obviously a very iconic green today, existing on hole 3, is a green that's very sloped in nature from front to back, but the cause of the, kind of the result of that is that there's very limited space on the green to be able to cup or put a pin and play the hole. And because of that, this green wears out very quickly as far as once the traffic patterns start building up, because you're not able to utilize a lot of this green because it is too severely sloped. It becomes kind of a maintenance issue, and that it's hard to keep that green healthy. So we're proposing to redo this green. Now, I understand it is an iconic green, and I don't want to kind of go the opposite direction and just do a flat green that's completely destroying the concept of the hole. This green will actually, the new green will be slightly bigger, and the slope will be a little less. We'll still have sloped areas, and I think I have greens detail on the next page. We'll still have, the plan is calling for 3 what I would call puttable areas, when before it's basically I had 2 that were very, very small. These 3 puttable areas will be much larger, and the percentage of slope in the puttable areas will be between 1% and 2%, which is relatively, will seem extremely flat compared to what it's there today. But between the puttable areas, we have slopes that get up into 5% and 6%, which will still have some of that same character, but will be much easier to maintain. The golfers will like it because it'll be a better surface to play on. Go to hole 3. I'm sorry, it's labeled hole 3, but we're on hole 4 now. Again, we're going to try to shift this hole a little bit to the right or to the north to help utilize some of this area that's available. Right now, there's a big bunker to the right side of this fairway, and a lot of golfers. Statistics show that 92% of the golfers slice the golf ball. So a high percentage of golf balls end up on the right side in this bigger bunker. We're going to still have 3 smaller bunkers out there, but they're going to be placed a little further out there, so they're more of a target style bunker. So it'll give the golfers something to aim at when they're on the tee, but the percentage of them actually hitting it in that big bunker or those smaller bunkers is going to be far less. Again, we have new irrigation here on this hole, and as we get up to the green, this is also a green that has had some issues. You can kind of see the old one to the left of this new proposed green, and it's tucked in between the existing trees, primarily cottonwoods, and issues with this existing green is the roots from the trees have gone underneath the green, and they've come up, and those roots like to suck a lot of the moisture out of the green, which causes dry spots, which makes the green very difficult to maintain at a consistent speed, just like the rest of the golf course. So to kind of combat that, we're going to pull the whole greens complex back away from it and more into the open, and that'll allow us to build a green that's should have a much more successful time of maintaining a good surface that's equally maintainable as to the rest of the putting greens on the course. This is kind of just showing you some of the irrigation that's going to be as part of this project. Again, that's kind of been the driving force, but it will as it is an aging system, just the improvements today, even versus from the 80s, 35 years ago, though the improvements in efficiency for the system, the new heads, the pipe, will increase the water efficiency from the course by close to 20%. So this is a major upgrade for the course. It helps with maintainability and also the cost of maintenance. So kind of just do a quick timeline here, I guess. We hope to kind of put this project out to bid here by the end of the month. And through the month of December, we'll have a pre-bid meeting, and the bids will be due. We're going to try to award the contract by late December, December 20th, after your meeting on the 19th. Then we'll try to have pre-construction meeting before the end of the year and start possibly even at the end of this year. Kind of the critical dates are we hope to get all of the tee, bunker, we do cart path work, irrigation, all of the major components of the construction should be done in early April, which is kind of the start of the growing season for turf grass, and that'll allow the sod that's going to be laid then, and the Hutch invite is April 27th this year. So that's kind of the drop-down goal to have this all open and ready to play by the time that rolls around. Kind of open up for questions now.
Thank you, Taylor. I guess I would just, my initial comment is that I'm so pleased that through the leadership of, continuing with Justin and Matt Miller, our golf course superintendent, that the master plan is still alive and well. And I think that's the important underlying thing to, I think, the city as a whole, is that multiple times we develop master plans, but whatever happens to master plans and what phase in the master plan, whether it be the zoo or the golf course or whatever it may be. And so it's a long, long process, and there's been a lot of discussion. I would compliment all of you guys in terms of what you did earlier this year in terms of you had an open meeting. There were lots of active golfers, and you invited for input. So it tells me that you're open-minded and that you're evaluating the feedback you got from the active golfers. And then finally, it's a public golf course. It's part of our park and recreation program, and I just look forward to the next phase and the continuation of the phase after that, so we ultimately complete the project, and because it is a great asset for the community.
How many more phases are there following this one? 2 more?
This is the largest phase yet. I guess that'd be more of a question for these guys back here. This will be
a total of 4. 4, yeah. Okay, any other questions to Taylor or Justin or Matt Miller?
What part of this, or what, where does the grant money get applied?
The design.
Grant money was for a different program.
For a different program.
It was
Okay.
a program that was completed last year.
Okay.
It involved, like I said, myself and an agronomist with the United States Golf Association. We spent a day site visit. I actually came up another day and visited with Matt, and we kind of basically went over the entire project, and we looked at all the opportunities and limitations, and the agronomist and myself developed a report to kind of presented our recommendations for how the facility could be improved or run more efficiently
Okay.
and
So
effectively.
it was a grant to review the master plan and make some decisions on change of direction or whatever. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good.
Thanks.
Thank you
for your
the
patience.
report.
Thank you.
Very good. Excellent work. You bet. All right, Linda, next items here.
Item 10, report of city officials.
All right. Jay, do you have anything this morning?
Quickly, just wanted to thank the city for their prompt response to some concerns on Waldron Street. I noticed some speed notification signs up there, so thank you for that. And wanted to invite everybody to the United Way 50th anniversary celebration on Wednesday. That's 5:30 to 7:30 at Main Street event across from First National Bank. So 2 North Main, 5:30 to 7:30, help celebrate 50 years of successful fundraising for the United Way. Thank you, John.
Just want to emphasize that the sky is not falling in Hutchinson. I know I read differently sometimes in certain social media platforms. There are a lot of bright minds at the chamber, at the city, other places that are working on these things as they develop, and bear with us. I think you'll be happy with the end result. I think Hutchinson will be here for many years to come.
Absolutely. How about you, Steve?
Well, today is election day, so be sure to get out and vote. Polls are open until what, 7? Yeah. So please be sure to do that. Kind of following up Jade's comment about United Way on the 18th, Christmas Day Parade, but also the Interfaith Housing Services is having an open house following the parade. So 1326 East Avenue A, open house at IHS. And that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. And Nancy, how about you?
Absolutely nothing.
All right, fine. Mr. Deerdoff.
I'm going to yield my time to executive session.
How much time do we need?
So I have nothing. Yeah.
You have nothing? All right, we have apparently an executive session, so do we have a motion on the first recess?
What do we require for the first recess?
I'm
Just
wise.
read that first motion.
No,
Well,
but how
I mean
much
the time on the clock, I
Oh,
should
sorry.
suggest. Yeah.
Probably 30 minutes.
You'll need to put an order out.
Huh?
30 minutes.
Yeah.
12:10, if my math is accurate.
Yeah, we may just leave it at that. So yeah.
Okay. I will move to recess into executive session pursuant to the employer-employee negotiations exception KSA 754319B3 in order to discuss issues related to the 2019 contract negotiations with the city's bargaining units. The open meeting to resume in the city council chamber at 12:10 p.m.
Yes, it would be PM. not
PM.
AM.
I almost messed that up.
Yeah, second.
All right, motion and a second. Please call roll.
Pyros de Carvalho?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.